Hey friends, it's Alex from Vulture Culture, and today I'm going to be reviewing the colossal new plugin EOS 2 by Audio Damage. Before we get started, please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. EOS 2 is a Titanic-sounding algorithmic reverb plugin from the good people at Audio Damage. If you go to their website, audiodamage.com, you can see it's $59, which is nothing for a reverb unit of this quality. And the algorithms are provided by none other than Sean Costello, or Castillo, I'm not sure how to say your name, so sorry if I mispronounced it, but the maker of the Valhalla reverb plugins, which are probably some of the best you can possibly get. And this plugin is insane, so let's get right into it. EOS has been around for a while, but in the version 2 update that just came out, we get a new plate algorithm. We get this gorgeous user interface here that's just awesome, and now it's VST3 compatible and some other under the hood tweaks and stuff. So first, let's listen to the drums without EOS 2 on them. All right, and with the plugin on. Now, right now you can see the decay. I have a very small decay, and it's on plate 2 to try to emulate sort of like a tight drum room sound. I'm going to increase the decay, which is just how long the reverb lasts, a little bit here, so we can really hear the difference. All right, so let's check out the 4 different algorithms before we even dive into any of the controls here. Plate 1. Sounds super vintage, and you can hear a lot of difference in the stereo image from the early reflections here. Plate 1 is summed mono before it hits the reverb, and then it outputs stereo. Plate 2 is true stereo. Sounds really natural to my ears. And plate 3 is like plate 2. This is the new algorithm. But you get an even wider stereo image with this one. They all sound really awesome. And now we get to Super Hall, which is designed to be the most massive reverb imaginable. You can hear there's basically no upper limit on how big you want to get this thing. But for now, we're going to just play around with plate 2 on the drums. Let's go over all of the controls here so we can hear what every one of them does. First, we're going to start with pre-delay, and what pre-delay is sort of like a offset of when the reverb starts. It's sort of like an echo, so small amounts can increase the depth. So without it, it sounds like this. And if I increase it, maybe up to, in here, it's just made it feel, you know, the room just got 100 feet bigger. And if we keep going with this, it can get kind of unnatural sounding. Sort of sounds like a racquetball court. And if we have really aggressive, it starts to sound almost like a delay, really weird one. What attack does is it boosts the presentness of the reverb on the plates. If I remove it, it'll kind of set the reverb back a little bit. See, it's not as in your face. Diffusion controls the character of the early reflections, and early reflections are sort of the characteristics of the reverb before it starts to fade out. Reverbs in natural settings have a very there's the long tail that's very muddy and indistinct, but at first there's those very early reflections off the walls or whatever you're whatever's bouncing the sound back to you, and those are really important, and this plugin does a great job with them. So I'm going to listen to just the reverb right now without the drums, so this is all wet, and you can hear how the character changes as I increase the diffusion. See? If I remove it all the way. But this one you can really hear the sort of almost slap back of the reverb, and if I increase it all the way, it's very diffused. So let's hear that with the drums, diffusion all the way off. You get that really slappy sound. Wow, that just sounds awesome. All right, and EOS 2 is like a lot of those old analog chorus reverb units where there's some modulation that's going into the reverb signal. And this is just like a chorus where you have depth and rate. So if I bring this all the way down, we're pretty low, and I increase the depth, we should be able to hear some interest being added to the sound. I don't know if you can hear a little bit of almost like a phasey type sound. If I increase this, now there's a little bit more warble going on. And this is part of what makes a algorithmic reverb sound so good as compared to a convolution reverb. In a convolution reverb, you get a very natural sound, but you can't get this really awesome modulation that helps keep it very interesting. The last setting here that we're going to look at on the left side of the plugin is the size. So this massively affects the, wow, it just sounds like the best 80s snare reverb. And if I increase this, you can hear how it drastically alters the character of the reverb. In general, you want to keep the size and decay similar. So if we have a very tight delay, to emulate like a small room, we probably want to get the size really small too. So this is great for something like drums, where we can get, you know, this really tight, very organic sound, but we don't get all of the resonances and weird valleys and peaks that you would get if you were using an impulse response of a real drum room. So it's very smooth, it's not going to get in your way at all. And as we increase this, that's really increased. Let's dial that back a little. So if we increase the size too, see how that sounds really unnatural like this? But if I increase the size, it sounds a lot more natural. We could even go push this a little bit more. It sounds like these drums were recorded in the Grand Canyon. You can see it has the size kind of as a quirky little thing. It says 40.1 meters here. I think that's just a kind of an arbitrary kind of fun thing that they did. So you can see how massively that affects stuff. And all of these algorithms have different, this will affect everything differently. So in plate 1, let's do the same thing. Let's start off with something really tight. As we increase, you can hear that this will, now we have like this really darker sound, and let's go back to a smaller. Wow, it sounds really good. Now if we increase this, wow, it's just, I feel like at every point here is something really unique, and it's very easy to get a really cool sound immediately, but everything's so useful. Over here on the right side of the plugin, we have low multiplier and high multiplier. And what these do is they control how quickly the high or low frequencies decay. So right now they're both set to 1. Let's bring this back down so we have something a little reasonable to work with. All right, and if I lower this, you can hear that the high frequencies die very quickly. It's like they're absorbed by the room quickly. If we have this, it sounds like the most live room imaginable. So too much of that and we're gonna get a really dark reverb. Should be cool for like some sound design. Same thing over here. If we crank this up, start to get that classic 80s sound. And then we could also remove some of it. So if we were doing we wanted to get a really bright sounding reverb. By removing that low multiplier, we get rid of all that mud. This would be really good on some vocals or something. For now, we'll put this back to 1 and 1. Then we have a low cut filter and a high cut filter. That's pretty self-explanatory. If I bring this up, it'll just filter out the input to the reverb. Oh, that's really cool. And same thing here, we can cut down frequencies. And then we have the low and high crossover, and these control the cutoff points for the multipliers. So you can hear that if I boost, let's say, the low multiplier, and I increase this frequency, more of the mids are getting boosted. If I bring it back down, now only the low frequencies, the lowest frequencies are decaying slower. Same thing here. If I increase this to say 5K, I'll only be attenuating the highest frequencies. Now if I lower this, we'll get more of the mids that are getting attenuated. Till we're at 500, now most of that high end is being attenuated. The last two settings are of course the decay, which I already went over, and then the mix. So this is the drums without any of the reverb, and then you can set whatever amount you want. Probably my only gripe with this plugin is that there's a mix knob and there isn't a wet and dry knob. I'm a big fan of having both. You can blend in parallel the dry and wet signals. Most of the time when you're using a reverb like this, you're using it as a reverb send, so you would just have it always 100% on mix. But there are those times where I'd rather have independent control of the dry and wet signals. For instance, like on a vocal, if I'm putting a reverb on a vocal live or something like that, I want to keep the vocal the same volume. As I increase the mix, the dry signal consequentially is getting quieter, and that can be a little frustrating. So that's the biggest gripe I have with this thing. So for the last feature, I have a synth routed to a separate instance of EOS 2 on the Super Hall setting with the decay all the way up. Here's the synth dry. And here is the synth with EOS 2 on it. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? I think that's incredible. So if I press the infinite button when we play back some audio, you can hear that now we have that little piece of audio looping eternally. Now, if I set the increase some modulation here, we can really hear what the modulation does. See, it's starting to get that chorus type sound. Right now it's pretty slow, but if we increase this, it'll get really nasty sounding. It's starting to sound like a horror movie drone. Yeah, and it's just a really cool setting. So what you could do is, I'm going to turn the mod depth all the way down, or I'm going to get a really slow mod rate. Press play, which will turn the infinite mode off. So now I have that little piece of audio. Now if I increase the mod depth quite a bit, but we have this really slow modulation rate, what I could do is then render this, and we would have a a really useful drone type thing that we'd be able to use for some sound design or some really cool textures. So it's basically like the freeze function in a lot of reverbs out there. So here's another really cool feature. I have a synth routed to another instance of EOS 2, and let's hear what this sounds like. Now, if you hear it with this reverse effect on here, so you can see the size is huge, but the attack is all the way down. So if I increase the attack, it starts to sound more natural, but if I bring it all the way down with the size all the way up and a tight decay, it has this pseudo-reverse type reverb sound, which is really cool and I think makes a really neat effect. So you can hear it faded in here. Really cool, really unique, and just another neat little hidden thing that you can do in this plugin. Overall, I think there isn't a better $59 you could ever spend on a reverb plugin. This thing is gorgeous. It's not overly complicated, which I think a lot of reverb plugins struggle with that. I think that it is totally useful. Every one of these algorithms sounds gorgeous, and they sound really natural without sounding fake. One of my biggest issues with algorithmic reverbs is they often sound really, really fake. And this one seems to straddle the difference between natural and also just that gorgeous, unreal, infinitely extending, huge hall type sound. So I think it's incredible. I think Audio Damage has outdone themselves with this plugin, and it's absolutely worth every penny. It's going to be my default reverb from now on every track that I do. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please support Audio Damage. They're a small development company, and I think it's always good to support small plugin developers. And if you like this video, please press the thumb thing in the bottom of the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more tutorials like this, more reviews like this, and also you can listen to my band Vulture Culture's music on our channel. And I'll see you in the next video. Also, a shout out to Josepher for paying for this plugin for me. Thank you very much, buddy. And shout out to my girl Case. I know you're broke as all hell, but one day you're going to be able to afford this plugin, and it's going to be awesome. So thank you very much. See you in the next video.